Today, I bring you one of the most recognizable American exotic cars ever made, and that is one of the underrated Chevy Corvettes that I think nobody mentions about as much because most people turn their heads to the newer Vettes like the C7 and C8 for many reasons. If you love Corvettes, then you knew how we felt about when the C7 and the C8 Vette first came out. They were getting agile, better with interior qualities, and stayed traditional based on trims and style. The Corvette C6 is a common sports car and very affordable to obtain for so much power. You'll catch trims like the base model and the Z06 on the roads frequently. But what about this? The C6 ZR1, the ultimate Corvette that became the most powerful Vette ever of its generation. You don't see the ZR1 on the roads as often, do you? Because I don't often spot this particular ZR1 other than the Z06 variants, and that's why I think the C6 ZR1 is an underrated sports bargain. The Corvette C6 ZR1 is a supercar based on the standard C6 and was the ultimate Corvette. General Motors brought back the ZR1 nameplate for the top line variant of the C6 and made its debut in 2009. The last ZR1 badge was originally found on the final Corvette's C4s in the 1990s and again on the C3 Vette in the 1970s. General Motors had a mind to take the C6 Z06 that came out in 2006 another step further in development. Then when the ZR1 released 3 years later, the power and the performance package was a huge jump from the Z06 because the C6 ZR1 was essentially the first ever Corvette to have a forced induction supercharged engine known as the LS9. Ever since the 2009 Vette ZR1, superchargers have been featured in the modern ones on the C7 Z06 as well as the new ZR1. Back when this was new, the C6 ZR1 was the most expensive, most powerful, built for speed, and the fastest Corvette that General Motors ever produced, codename Blue Devil. The given starting price of the ZR1 was above $100,000 at the time. It still remains one of the coolest Corvettes you can purchase since it's been out for over a decade. This thing still is a beast on the streets and on the track with a serious aggressive design. General Motors bulged the hood to accommodate the ridiculous 6.2-liter supercharged V8, making a whopping 638 brake horsepower and 604 pound-feet of torque. The ZR1 will do 0 to 60 mph in 3.5 seconds and hit the quarter mile in 11.5 seconds, and stunningly reaches a top speed of 205 miles per hour, which is very fast in the modern era of supercars today. Also the first Corvette to proceed over 200 miles per hour. The ZR1 sported and only offered a 6-speed manual transmission, which was very cool at the time because most driver enthusiasts feels more connected to the car for much more enjoyable driving experience. A powerful supercharged V8, rear-wheel drive, 2-door supercar with a manual stick. That's all you get. Unlike the new Corvette C8, which only comes in automatics plus is quicker alongside the C7 ZR1, both have better interiors, ride comfort, and technology improvement. But both also are in an era with enormous horsepower and mad performance stats are considered. The C6 ZR1 started about that era, while other supercars like the Ferrari and McLaren started to enter in the era replacing their manuals to dual clutches for better fuel economies and other reasons, while the ZR1 remained just a stick-shift manual and only manual. They knew what they were doing. The ZR1 was ultimate enough to take on other supercars from a decade ago, with the McLaren 12C, Ferrari 599, Nissan GT-R, SRT Viper GTS, and plenty more. Without question, the C6 ZR1 was a supercar killer. It was cheaper than all competitors with that amount of performance, but not just for the price, but for any supercar over a decade ago. The styling of the C6 ZR1 has notable changes over the rest of the C6 lineup. It may appear like a regular Corvette, yes, but this has a wider body kit, carbon ceramic brakes, brake calipers are painted blue, huge fender vents, carbon front splitter, side skirts, aluminum body frame to save weight, and the polycarbonate hood window visualizes the blue-white intercooler with the written LS9 supercharge. I always find that look cool on a Corvette through the hood. There is also the iconic blue ZR1 badge label on the rear bumper and both front fenders. Different bigger rims also makes the car look extreme and brutal. The ZR1 had the carbon fiber roof to save weight. No convertible was available for all the C6 ZR1 models, only coupe with a fixed carbon roof. Therefore, if you want the open top Corvette C6, the Grand Sport is a car to collect. When climbing in the interior of the Vette ZR1 honestly seems like a normal interior with a lot of plastic and cheap stuff. The features are very simple and not too absorbing like the new Vettes are. Back then, everyone loved how insane this car was, but not so much on the interior. Why? GM did a great job with the performance stats, but slacked the interior very badly. There were many complaints about how the interior needed a complete new redesign because it mostly remained unchanged throughout the C6 lineup and even since the C5 Vette. Some enthusiasts would spend so much money to get a $100,000 ZR1 for the insane performance, but with only minor features with addition a bit of stitching, carbon fiber on the center console with regular buttons, and inside the gauge cluster there is the ZR1 badge and the virtual HUD display on the windshield, which is carried over from the standard C6. Regular infotainment screen, regular climate controls, regular parking brake, and that's about it. The ZR1's interior lacked some refinements until 2013 when the new C7 Vette resolved the quality issue. The trunk space on the C6 ZR1 along the rest of the C6 lineup offered 22.4 cubic feet of luggage room, which is surprisingly impressive even for modern standards, because it's more than what you get in a full-size sedan. I never expected that from any Corvette to be so practical like this, because unlike the C7 and especially the C8 trunk space severely dropped, which makes a lot of sense because you can't expect too much trunk space in a sports car, and Corvettes are European inspired supercars anyway. In 2011, Chevrolet turned 100 years old and asked themselves, what do you do if you're one of the world's top automakers and you have reached your 100th birthday? Well, they created a special edition of the most powerful Corvette in history. The C6 ZR1 Sentinel Edition was a limited edition finished in carbon flesh metallic with Satan black and red outline rims. And this model was a rare Corvette, with the same horsepower, same pound-feet of torque, and same top speed. Then, in 2013, Corvette celebrated its 60th anniversary with all Vette trims with the anniversary package. The C6 ZR1 still stands out from other ZR1s today. It may not be the strongest nor the most powerful Vette anymore since the new ZR1 is now, but the C6 ZR1 is still incredibly popular in the driver's car with crazy amounts of power that throws you back in the seat with 638 brake horsepower thanks to the supercharger. The carbon brakes are so amazing that you can brake super late entering in the corners. The LS9 engine can growl up to 6,500 RPMs, and the ZR1 weighs about 3,518 pounds. The C6 ZR1 was the first Vette to have a magnetic ride control, or magnetic ride suspension, and what that does is adapts and adjusts the shock absorbers to react on the surface and adapt to uneven road surfaces, keep body movement under control, and enhance the car's handling in corners at more speeds. This should be awesome to take the ZR1 on twisty back roads. The ZR1 can be driven on a daily basis too, but whenever you get a chance to enter a massive highway, you just want to skyrocket and blow right past traffic like it's nothing, and also prove to non-car guys that this may appear like a regular Corvette, but can't deny the book by its cover, until you for real get behind the wheel and really drive it fast. The ZR1 already sounds intimidating as looking hard at the hood window. It looks amazing in Jetstream Blue Metallic, which strongly is one of my favorite colors and definitely a street racer. However, for some reason, GM never included the ZR1 in racing division, until Pratt & Miller Engineering, known as Corvette Racing, decided to take the C6R GT2 and modify it based on the ZR1's body design for the Rouge competition and the American Le Mans series. The Racing ZR1 GT2 replaced the outgoing C6R GT1 car in 2009 through 2013 and has been dominant for many seasons in the American Le Mans series and even at the 24 Hours of Le Mans every year. Both the street and the competition are still a legend at what they do, and I cannot wait to hear this racing Corvette at the end of this video as she sounds really mean. And the ZR1 deserves to be driven more. And now, that is the end car review of the Corvette C6 ZR1. And I hope you guys really did sit back and relax and enjoy this video. And if you did, do not forget to smash that like button and don't forget to click to subscribe if you want to see some more upcoming videos. And you are more than welcome to give me any car suggestions in the comments down below. Without further ado, let's walk to the Corvette Z01 and get inside and stuck the keys into the ignition and start the engine. And then test drive the racing Corvette C6R Z01 at Riverside International Raceway. Make sure to adjust your headphone volume for both car sounds. Peace out.